Indian news from a kwaba a sign at the back and Casafidino a superior. Then you know, say the politics, the governance, the whether NDC, MPP, the Mufua. Na get some SCN show and abroad, any bushim capra. Now, say, no Ghana, I should papa is son a free bread, a bansasa, and as about walk of small bansasa. Then in a force the antennas and for further cheap. And yet, not in some for BSCR, I was say also so to me at be now there was so and so at ye. Now, so the kind of sacaco, the Coquano, and so the other can see me, the feature. You couldn't put things in brother, has what the comments. About abuse, subscribe to the channel, no, and so that all other relevant news are found these Ghanaian politics. Yin things in Mimbra, my refuse subscribe to the channel, no, and so that all other relevant news. Opposite with the Yentin Semimra for commenting so bra. The way I can also adventure.
I mean, I've been listening to all of what is happening. But you see,
you have heard from two lawyers.
Two lawyers.
You'll be hearing from another lawyer.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm coming here with common sense. So, for example, I mean, looking at all of this, the theatrics surrounding and the charade that have been played out in this particular case points to one thing. And having heard from the moderates start to say, oh, it's been politicized. That's all it was being boiled down to, right? And that's the kind of success these needless interventions are beginning to yield because they want people to say, okay, this is a partisan process. This is a politicized process. And when it does that, it debases the essence and process and procedures. For me, her posturing as a suspended CJ amounts to a provocation of the judiciary and an abuse of the Constitution. Why? It's explicit in that in camera. You know, as CJ, what that means. It is explicit that the president has nothing to do with it. The process, when it gets to the Council of State, you know, it must take an automatic process whatsoever. You know, as CJ. So why are you trolling and skirting around all of these? In any case, is she trying to tell us that with the current posturing and all of these suits being filed in proxy of her?
No, she has filed only one suit.
No, for her. But we have other people like the minority.
So it is unfair to say proxies.
Well, viewed, which could be interpreted as proxies. Is that fair?
I think it's unfair to her.
Yeah.
She has filed only one suit.
Okay, she has filed one suit.
On the 21st.
Okay, let's say she has filed.
And that is yet to be determined.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, based on her suit and the rest of the suits that could be interpreted by, bystanders that these may be proxy suits are an attack to the process and a disrespect to it as far as I'm concerned. Is she invariably saying that if she's called back to be CJ, she can actually work with these judges? That's number one, right? Based on the current acrimony that she's finding within this process. In any case, when they say in camera and all of these,
judges are doing their judge duties.
Yes.
It's not personal. So why do you have a suspicion that she may not be able to work with those who have ruled against bringing her back?
Because it is beginning to get personal.
Injuncting the process.
Because it is beginning to get personal. Godfrey Dami, who is her representative, is mentioning names. Is he not? Is that not personal? Is Justice Poorman's name not mentioned? That is personal. So if he was doing it devoid of personalities, then we can talk about that. In any case, is it not problematic, Samson? You are lawyers. You protect your profession. You protect and respect the very institution which is the judiciary. That a former attorney general, 5 months out of office, is representing a CJ. I'm not saying there's something wrong with it, but when you look at it from a political moral perspective, what does it connote?
The Constitution says
what interpretation
people must pick lawyers of their choice.
Their choice, yes. But if you were an attorney general who had just left office 5 months into or out of office, you are being called by a suspended CJ who you worked with as attorney general, as the government's lawyer, to come and represent her in this kind of case.
You're pointing at me. I don't let the optics obstruct me.
Yeah.
I have represented NDC people. I have represented NPP people.
Yes.
At the
no,
top
not you.
in
Not
the
you.
government.
No. I'm
suggesting that to you.
Yes.
And that I've heard people in NDC forget that you have represented their people. They say you are MPP. I've heard people in MPP forget that you have represented MPP. People say you are NDC.
Samson.
That doesn't bother me because as a lawyer,
yes,
I take an oath.
You are a lawyer
to defend anybody.
You are a lawyer.
That I find that they need to be defended.
You are a lawyer. He was a former attorney general. That's a very high office. That's a very high office.
It's an office for a lawyer,
right? It's an office for a lawyer, but not every lawyer gets to occupy it. So once you occupy it,
the lawyer who catches the eye of the president.
Yes. So once you catch the eye of the president, we have clad you with a constitutional power and a certain respect that comes with it. And that interpretation you give to the public in and of itself is problematic. And that's why people are beginning to give that partisan interpretation, which is deliberate at poisoning the well, as far as these issues are concerned. Why? Did we not see?
What's your concern?
No,
he says Chachi Chikata is NDC lawyer.
Yes.
Tayo Sori is NDC lawyer. I can't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
So you see, you yourself is having...
That's my point.
Yeah, that's your point. So, but
Bakavomawo is also NDC lawyer. So it means this is orchestrated by the NDC.
No.
Is Chachi Chikata not NDC?
He's NDC.
Is he not proud to be NDC?
Yeah, and what's wrong with him being NDC?
And so what's the problem too?
So I'm not saying MPP. I'm saying the office as Attorney General. Let's distinguish the two. I never went on the partisan tangent. I'm giving respect to the offices. The sanctity of the office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice is what I'm looking at, not the individual Godfrey Dame or the individual MPP or NDC. No, it is the office. And that office is a constitutional office. So if I see an ex-appointee of that office 5 months out of office, having to pick such a case, it begins to raise certain questions in my mind as a citizen.
We don't pick cases,
not us.
The cases pick us.
Right, yeah.
We don't pick cases.
Yes, but you have...
Believe me.
You mentioned... Amanda, you mentioned that Justice Sophia, who sits on the Council of State, recused herself from it. She was a member of the Council of State. The case came to her, and she thought that, hang on a second.
She didn't vote.
No, what I'm coming, hang on a second. I respect this institution. For the office I've probably held before, let me not be a part of this process that could give a certain coloring to it. She stayed off. Right? This is the respect of the sanctity of the kind of public office I am talking about. Because you have a former CJ.
May I?
In any case, you could see all the antiques around all of this happening. When the CJ put in her response, she referenced Justice Sophia in that response, who sat on the Council of State. Now, people are talking about neutrality, that a set neutral committee should be formed. Look at the composition of the Council of State. Why is the justice herself there? She's representing the judiciary. Has she not done an act that shows she's independent by staying off or recusing herself? You have a former CDS who represents the armed forces. You have a former IGP who represents the police service, all within the Council of State. What other stature of a committee do we think best suits this kind of decision that you think would be devoid of certain interpretations of saying XYZ is wrong? This is where I'm coming from. So let's look at it. When we talk about the in-camera stuff, I think it is just not for her personal protection or personal protection of the parties involved. But again, it boils down to the sanctity of the office, which is the Chief Justice. So I think we should distinguish between...
So you are saying...
Yeah.
Whilst she may have a right to say, well, you want to do it in camera, I don't want it.
Yes.
She should also think about the other parties.
The other parties, not just
the petitioners.
Yes.
And potentially the witnesses who will be
appearing.
And if you can blow the whistle about a CJ doing wrong, what should you be afraid of?
You are not afraid of anything.
Having the cameras on you and giving your testimony.
No one is afraid of anything, but they also have the right, just as the CJ also has, right, to make that, which is what they are asking for. So again, what about the respect of the office of the CJ, which I believe the framers of the Constitution are protecting? We should not look at individualize it. We should not individualize it. Okay. It is the office. So for me, I'm looking at it from the perspective of the office, not personalities. In any case, when the Charlotte Essay issue happened, did we see any of these happening? She was electoral commissioner. Why? Or she has pink blood running in her. That she didn't need this galvanized support of a base. Or she didn't, merit this kind of discussion and elaboration that we need.
Do you know how much Charlotte Essay's lawyer fought at the time?
Yes, but that's her lawyer fighting. But in this case, you have the GBA.
But what did
you had minority.
Say? What did the NDC not say?
right?
What did the NDC not say at the time?
No, well, what did people not say? Was it the NDC or people saying?
NDC.
What did they say?
What the MPP is saying today.
You see, again, Samson, you see, when we try to politicize this, right, we fall for, that poison well of politicization. It detracts from the germane issues surrounding this. And that is my worry, right? I mean, you all talk about, when you finish this, you end up with constitutional reforms, isn't it? You're calling for constitutional reforms. When President Mahama set up the constitutional reform, who is chairing it? A moderate, who can neither be decided as an NDC or an MPP. So that tells you the president's vision as far as constitutional reforms are concerned. So if we are discussing constitutional reforms within the confines of a suspension of a CJ, with all these theatrics and antiques surrounding it, we should do a divide of the partisanship that we're trying to throw into it, which will mar the entire debate and will be unable to unpack the real issues.
Okay.
So we are talking about an office here, which is the office of
Alfred
the Chief
has been
Justice.
on for a long time. Let me go to Alfred.
Right, a very respectable office at that. Chief Justices have come and gone.
All right. Alfred Chair, well, thanks for staying with us.